He met her by accident and decided she would be his destiny. Kang is loud, playful, and dangerously confident, pretending to be someone he's not while chasing a girl who refuses to be easily won. What begins as a funny street collision spirals into a whirlwind day of chaos, laughter, and unexpected romance. But every joke has a limit, and every lie has a breaking point. As the night grows closer and emotions deepen, the truth quietly waits in the shadows, ready to change everything. Kang in his suit was parked casually by the roadside, one hand in his pocket and the other holding a paper plate of steaming roadside food. The contrast was almost ridiculous: polished shoes, crisp suit, and then street food dripping slightly at the edges. He didn't care. If anything, he looked like he was enjoying himself more than anyone else around. He had just finished teasing the vendor about adding too much sauce for a man of his status when he reached into his pocket to pay. That was when it happened. Amanda rushed past in a blur of motion, her steps quick, her attention clearly elsewhere. She bumped into him by accident, causing him to shift slightly and nearly drop his food. "Oh my word, I'm so sorry," she said quickly, barely stopping. Kang turned immediately, ready to complain, his brows already pulling together. "Hey you." Then he saw her properly. Everything he was about to say disappeared. Instead, he blinked, straightened slightly, and said almost too smoothly, "You walk very fast." "That's impressive." Amanda didn't even slow down. "Sorry," she repeated, already moving away. Kang stood there for half a second, processing what had just happened, then looked down at his food, then back at her retreating figure. "Wait! Hold on!" he called, abandoning all dignity as he quickly dropped his plate back on the vendor's table and jogged after her. He caught up and stepped in front of her, slightly out of breath but smiling like he hadn't just sprinted. "You apologized already," he said, nodding. "That's good. But I feel like we can build something from this moment." Amanda stopped, stared at him briefly, clearly unimpressed. "I'm late." "Okay, great. I'll walk with you." Kang replied immediately, falling into step beside her like it had already been agreed upon. "You don't need to." "I know," he said cheerfully. "I want to." She sighed, quickening her pace. He matched it. "Can I at least know your name?" he tried. No response. "Okay. Name later. Number now." She shot him a look. "No." "Social media? Email? Emergency contact?" he added, completely serious. She stopped walking this time, turning to face him fully. "Look, I don't know you." "That's exactly the problem I'm trying to solve," Kang replied without missing a beat. For a second, she almost reacted. Almost, but then she shook her head and continued walking. Kang followed again, undeterred. "Just 5 minutes," he said. "I promise I'm interesting. At least a little." "Okay, maybe medium interesting. Please stop following me," she said firmly, though not harshly. He raised his hands slightly in surrender, but still walked. Then suddenly, "Hey!" The voice came from behind him. Loud, sharp, persistent. "Hey you!" "Hello!" Kang froze mid-step, confused, slowly turning around. The shouting got louder, more aggressive. He squinted, trying to figure out who it was, while Amanda kept walking, her distance from him increasing with every second. And then he saw her, the roadside food vendor, marching toward him, angry, holding nothing. "You didn't pay," she shouted. Kang's eyes widened slightly. Then he looked back at Amanda, then back at the vendor, then back at Amanda again, who was now much farther away. "Oh, come on," he muttered under his breath. He turned fully toward the vendor, throwing his hands out in frustration. "Why now? You couldn't give me, 2 more minutes?" My future was walking away. The vendor didn't care. "Pay first." Kang sighed dramatically, dragging himself back, shaking his head. "This is sabotage," he grumbled. "Real sabotage." He paid, grabbed what was left of his food, and walked back to his car, still muttering to himself. By the time he sat down, the street felt normal again. But his mind wasn't. He stared ahead for a moment, then leaned back. But Kang wasn't sitting in his car like some deep thinker. He was literally arguing with himself out loud. Why didn't I say something cooler? Why did I mention her walking speed? What was that? He slapped his steering wheel lightly in frustration, then burst out laughing at himself. That was so bad. He shook his head, smiling now. That was the thing about Kang. He didn't take life too seriously, even when he messed up. But this time felt different. Not in a heavy, emotional way, just in that itchy, curious, I want to see her again kind of way. He leaned forward, resting his arms on the wheel. She didn't even look back. A slow grin spread across his face. Okay. He started the car. I like this game. He wasn't used to being ignored like that. And now it had become a challenge. A fun one. Kang didn't drive far before spotting the boutique. In truth, he hadn't even planned anything properly. He just told himself he was going to buy a dress, even though he had absolutely no idea who the dress was for. The real reason sat quietly in the back of his mind, disguised as coincidence and curiosity. He adjusted his suit as he stepped out of the car, took a quick glance at his reflection on the window, brushed imaginary dust off his shoulder, then nodded to himself. All right, he muttered, act rich. Don't breathe poor. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The bell chimed softly, but Kang entered like the place had been waiting for him all day. His posture straightened, his steps slowed, and suddenly he was no longer the roadside food guy from earlier. He was a man with options, a man who casually looked at price tags without blinking, even though he was absolutely blinking inside. He moved toward a rack, picked up a dress, flipped the tag slightly, and almost choked. Why is this one fighting me? He whispered under his breath. Is it made of gold threads? He quickly composed himself, glancing around to make sure no one noticed his moment of financial panic. Then he picked up another item, nodding like he understood fashion deeply. Yes, very fabric. And that was when it happened. His eyes drifted toward the counter, then froze, then widened, then blinked again just to confirm. Amanda, standing right there, alive, real, working. Kang slowly lowered the dress in his hand like the universe had just handed him a second chance, wrapped in perfect timing. No way, he murmured, a grin already forming. Meanwhile, Amanda had already seen him. Her eyes widened slightly, and she immediately turned her face away, pretending to focus intensely on something that did not exist. No, how? She whispered to herself. Did he follow me? She grabbed a random receipt, stared at it like it was life-changing information, and angled her body slightly to avoid eye contact. Too late. Kang adjusted his suit again, this time with purpose. Ran his fingers through his hair, straightened his collar, practiced a quick smile, then walked toward her like a man on a mission. Every step had unnecessary confidence. Every movement slightly dramatic. He stopped right in front of her, smiled. Amanda slowly looked up, like someone accepting defeat. You again, she said. Kang placed a hand lightly on his chest. Again? Wow. You say that like it's a bad thing. She sighed. How did you find me? He leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice like he was about to reveal a secret. I have my ways. She stared at him. He paused, then whispered, I got lost and ended up here. Amanda shook her head immediately, trying not to smile. You're unbelievable. I prefer persistent, Kang corrected, then casually gestured around the store. So, you work here? That's perfect. For who? She asked. For me, he said instantly. Fate is clearly trying to help me. Before she could respond, Kang suddenly turned, raised his voice slightly, and addressed absolutely nobody in particular. Excuse me, everyone. Heads turned. Customers paused. Employees froze. Amanda's eyes widened. Don't. Too late. Kang spread his arms slightly. I would just like to announce that today is a very important day. A woman near the shoes section leaned closer, clearly interested. Amanda covered her face. Oh my, Kang continued. I came into this store with one goal, to buy clothes. He paused dramatically. But I have found something far more valuable. He turned slowly, pointing at Amanda. There was a collective "oh" from somewhere. Amanda looked like she wanted the ground to open. Kang. Yes, my name is Kang, he said proudly. Interrupting her like that was the important part. Thank you for asking. I didn't ask. He ignored that completely. Turning back to her, he softened his voice slightly. Listen, take anything you want from this store. Amanda blinked. What? Anything? He repeated, louder this time. Shoes, dresses, bags. If you want a hanger too, take it. I will pay. A customer gasped dramatically. Another whispered, girl, say yes. Amanda folded her arms. No. Kang nodded slowly. Okay, I respect that. Then leaned closer. But just in case, look around first. She shook her head, smiling now despite herself. I'm not taking anything. Behind her, one of her colleagues leaned forward. Amanda, please, even if it's just one shoe. Another added, at least take a bag. Kang, meanwhile, was standing there praying internally. Please don't pick anything expensive. Please don't pick anything at all. Outwardly, he smiled confidently. Don't be shy. I'm not shy. Amanda replied calmly. I just don't want your money. He froze for half a second, then recovered. Okay, wow. That hurt a little. She laughed softly, and that tiny laugh, Kang caught it, locked onto it. Victory. Then suddenly, the atmosphere shifted slightly as the door opened again. Her boss walked in. The energy changed instantly. Staff scattered. Amanda grabbed random clothes and started pretending to be busy. Kang walked straight to the boss like he had been invited. Good afternoon, he said smoothly. The boss looked him over. Sharp suit, confident posture, car keys casually spinning in his hand, and immediately categorized him as valuable. Good afternoon, she replied warmly. Kang sighed deeply. I was about to buy half this store. Her eyes lit up, but one of your employees discouraged me. Her smile froze. Oh, Kang nodded seriously. Very unprofessional. She refused my generosity, rejected my vision. Amanda turned slowly, glaring at him. I can't hear you. I want you to hear me. Kang replied without looking at her. The boss gestured quickly. Please, seat. Let's talk. Kang sounded like a king being welcomed. Amanda watched him, disbelief written all over her face. And as he leaned back comfortably, he glanced at her and gave the smallest, most mischievous smirk. Kang was enjoying himself way too much. He wasn't trying to dominate the room. He was literally entertaining it, turning simple statements into dramatic declarations, acting like a billionaire 1 minute and a comedian the next. At one point, he even whispered to Amanda, Don't worry. If this gets too expensive, we run together. She almost laughed. Almost. The moment Kang settled into the chair her boss offered him, he crossed one leg over the other like a man preparing for a very serious business negotiation. Except nothing about his expression was serious. His eyes sparkled with mischief, his lips barely holding back a grin, and his fingers tapped lightly on the armrest like he was waiting for his cue to perform. Her boss leaned forward, warm but calculated. So, you were saying you wanted to buy half the store? Kang exhaled deeply, shaking his head like a disappointed investor. I did. I really did. I came in here with pure intentions. Clean heart. Open wallet. Amanda, from across the room, mouthed silently. Liar. Kang caught it immediately and pointed at her. You see? That one right there. Aggressive. The boss turned slightly, now curious. Amanda froze. I didn't do anything. Kang leaned forward, lowering his voice like he was revealing classified information. That's exactly what she wants you to think. The boss raised an eyebrow, amused now. What happened? Kang sighed dramatically, placing a hand on his chest. I walked in peacefully, calm, respectful, ready to spend money like a responsible citizen. Then, suddenly, hostility. Amanda's eyes widened. Hostility? He ignored her. She looked at me like I owed her rent. Kang continued. I felt judged, unwelcome, financially discouraged. The boss tried to hold her composure, but a smile slipped through. Amanda, is that true? Amanda dropped what she was holding. No, he's literally making things up. Kang gasped. Making things up? Wow, now she's attacking my truth. Amanda picked up a hanger like she might actually throw it. I will hit you. Kang leaned back in his chair, casually. Violence. You see this? This is the environment I walked into. The boss laughed now, fully entertained. Amanda, behave yourself. We don't attack customers. He's not a customer. Amanda fired back. Kang raised a finger. Emotionally, I am. That did it. The entire store burst into laughter. The boss shook her head, smiling widely now. Okay, let's fix this. What can we do to make it up to you? Kang sat up slowly, folding his hands together like he had been waiting his whole life for that question. "I'm glad you asked," he said. Amanda immediately started shaking her head. "Don't." Too late. Kang stood up, took 2 dramatic steps forward, then turned like he was addressing an invisible audience. "Let me explain what happened," he began. He started narrating the roadside encounter, dramatically exaggerated. "I was standing peacefully, eating my food, minding my business, looking good as usual." Amanda scoffed loudly. Then suddenly, boom, Kang clapped his hands loudly. Impact, collision, emotional damage. The customers leaned in. This mysterious woman appears, bumps into me, apologizes, but walks away like I am nothing. Amanda covered her face. "Oh my word. I followed her," Kang continued boldly, "because I believe in closure." "Closure?" Amanda snapped. "Yes," he said calmly. "Very important for mental health." He continued pacing slightly. "I tried to talk. She rejected me. I tried again. Rejected again. At that point, I started questioning my entire existence." The store erupted again. The boss was laughing openly now. "And this woman is—" Kang paused dramatically, turned slowly, pointed. "Amanda." All eyes went to her. Amanda threw her hands up. "This is nonsense." Kang nodded sadly. "You see? No accountability." The boss wiped a tear from laughing. "Amanda, you need to apologize." Amanda stared at her boss like she had been betrayed. "You too?" "Yes," the boss said playfully. "Apologize to our important customer." Amanda walked over slowly, glaring at Kang. "I'm sorry," she said flatly. Kang leaned closer. "Say it like you mean it." She smiled sweetly. "I'm sorry." He leaned back, satisfied. "Accepted." Then her boss clapped lightly. "Good. Now, let's continue shopping." Kang sat again, relaxed. "I might reconsider my decision now." At that exact moment, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, paused, then flipped it over. The boss noticed. "You're not taking that." Kang waved it off casually. "Not important." Amanda narrowed her eyes. "You've been ignoring that all day." He shrugged. "Some people don't understand timing." Then, without missing a beat, he stood again suddenly. "I just want to say," he began, raising a finger like he was about to deliver something profound. The entire store went quiet. "I have been emotionally attacked today." Silence. Then, laughter exploded everywhere. Even Amanda couldn't hold it anymore. She turned away, laughing despite herself, shaking her head. Kang pointed at her immediately. "Ah, there it is." A smile. She tried to recover. "It's not for you." "It's okay," he said proudly. "I will take partial credit." From that moment on, the boutique stopped feeling like a store. It became a stage. Customers stayed longer than they planned. Some pretended to browse just to keep watching. Others whispered, laughed, reacted like they were part of something unexpected and fun. Sales were happening. Energy was high. And right in the middle of it all was Kang, switching accents randomly, exaggerating every reaction, turning ordinary conversations into unforgettable moments. Amanda watched him, arms folded at times, shaking her head, but smiling more than she wanted to admit. Kang wasn't smooth. He wasn't polished. He was chaotic, unpredictable, dramatic, and somehow, against all logic, it was working. By 3 p.m., the boutique had completely transformed from a quiet shopping space into something that felt like a live show, and Kang was at the center of it all. He had somehow managed to keep the energy alive for hours, jumping from one joke to another, switching tones, teasing customers, playfully arguing with Amanda, and turning even the simplest moment into something dramatic. At one point, he had tried to model a scarf, wrapping it around his neck like a runway model before tripping slightly and blaming the floor for lack of cooperation. The laughter hadn't stopped since. Amanda, however, was doing everything in her power to remain unaffected. She stayed behind the counter longer than necessary, rearranged things that didn't need rearranging, and avoided eye contact whenever possible. But every now and then, a smile slipped through, and Kang noticed every single one. Her boss, on the other hand, was thoroughly entertained. She leaned against the counter at some point, watching Kang like someone who had just discovered free marketing. Finally, After another round of laughter, she clapped her hands lightly. "All right, Mr. Emotional Damage," she said, smiling. "You've entertained us enough. Let's make this official. I'll grant you one request." The store went quiet. Kang blinked once, then slowly stood up. "Only one?" he asked. "Only one," she replied. He turned, looking directly at Amanda. This time, for once, he didn't joke immediately. There was a brief pause, just enough to make the moment feel different. "I want a date with her." Silence. Amanda's head snapped up. "What?" The boss didn't even hesitate. "Approved." Amanda turned to her boss in disbelief. "Approved?" "Yes," she said casually. "Your shift is over. You can go." "I didn't agree to this." "You are agreeing now," the boss replied, already waving her off. The store erupted into cheers and playful claps. "Go, Amanda. Don't waste this opportunity. At least collect transport money." Amanda stood there, completely overwhelmed, looking from her boss to Kang and back again. Kang raised both hands like he had nothing to do with it. "Hey, I just made a humble request." She pointed at him. "This is your doing." He nodded proudly. "I influence people." She tried to stay serious, but then laughed. "Fine," she said finally, shaking her head. "Just fine." Kang clapped once, excited. "Yes, that's what I like to hear." Right at that moment, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, paused, then immediately declined the call. Amanda noticed. "You really don't want to answer that, huh?" Kang slipped the phone back into his pocket like nothing happened. Negative energy. "We avoid that." Before she could ask more, he turned quickly, fist bumped her boss. "You are officially my favorite person in this building," he said. The boss laughed. "Go and behave yourself." He rushed ahead and pulled the door open dramatically, standing to the side like a royal attendant. "After you," he said, bowing slightly. Princess treatment activated. The entire store burst into laughter again. Amanda walked toward the door, shaking her head, smiling despite herself. "You're doing too much." "I haven't even started," Kang replied confidently. As she stepped out, the staff waved and called after her. "Have fun. Bring gist tomorrow. Don't forget us when you become rich." Kang followed behind her, waving like a celebrity leaving an event. "Thank you. Thank you. I'll remember you all when I buy the building." "Please buy my rent too," someone shouted. "I'll think about it," he called back. Outside, the air felt different, quieter, calmer. For the first time all day, it was just the two of them. Kang didn't rush. He walked beside her, hands relaxed, energy still light, but not overwhelming. Kang didn't act like he just won. He acted like he just got access to the most fun adventure of the day. As they walked out, he leaned slightly and whispered, "Don't worry, I'm only 40% crazy." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "Only?" He nodded seriously. "Okay, 60% on weekends." She laughed. And just like that, whatever this was, it had officially begun. The evening didn't begin with a plan. It unfolded like a series of spontaneous decisions that somehow fit perfectly together. Kang drove without over-explaining anything, one hand on the wheel, the other occasionally tapping to music only he seemed to fully enjoy. Amanda sat beside him, watching him from time to time, still unsure whether to take him seriously or not. Their first stop was a small restaurant, not too fancy, not too casual, just the kind of place that felt comfortable without trying too hard. Kang walked in first and held the door open again, repeating with exaggerated pride, "Princess treatment." Still active. Amanda rolled her eyes, but smiled as she walked in. "You're not going to stop saying that, are you?" "Absolutely not," Kang replied. "Brand consistency is important." They sat, menus in hand. Kang opened his, stared at it for a few seconds, then slowly leaned closer to Amanda. "Order anything you want," he said confidently. Amanda narrowed her eyes slightly. "You sure?" Kang leaned in closer, lowering his voice like he was revealing a dangerous secret. "Just not the ones with market price. I like peace." Amanda burst out laughing, covering her mouth. "You're unbelievable." "I'm responsible," he corrected. "There's a difference." Their conversation flowed easily. Random topics, playful teasing, small stories that somehow became funny the moment Kang told them. He exaggerated everything just enough to keep Amanda laughing. And every time she laughed, he noticed it like it was an achievement. After the restaurant, Kang insisted they needed fresh air for digestion, which somehow led them to the beach. The evening sun was fading, the sky painted in soft colors, and the sound of waves created a calm contrast to Kang's constant energy. He picked up a small stone, held it up like he was about to do something impressive. "Watch this." Amanda folded her arms. "I'm watching." He threw it. The stone hit the water once, then sank immediately. Silence. Kang nodded slowly. "I call that artistic failure." Amanda laughed, freely this time, without holding back. "That was terrible." "Excuse me," he said, picking another stone. "That was experimental. This is the real one." He tried again. Same result. Amanda clapped slowly. "Very consistent." "Consistency is key," Kang replied proudly. They stayed there longer than expected, talking between jokes, the conversation dipping into slightly more real topics before bouncing right back into humor. Amanda found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't planned to. Kang wasn't trying to impress her in a heavy way. He was just being himself. Loud, playful, unpredictable. Next came ice cream. Kang walked up to the stand like it was a serious decision. "This is important," he said. "Choose wisely." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "It's ice cream." "Exactly," he replied. "High stakes." They got their cones, and within seconds Kang turned it into a competition. "First one to finish loses," he said confidently. Amanda looked at him. "That makes no sense." "It does to me." She smirked slightly. "What does the loser do?" Kang didn't hesitate. "Buys next time." Amanda paused mid-lick, then looked at him knowingly. "You just want a second date." Kang froze, then slowly lowered his ice cream. "I've been exposed." Amanda laughed again, shaking her head. "Wow." He continued, placing a hand on his chest. "I feel seen. This is dangerous." "Good," she replied. "Now eat your ice cream." By the time they got to the movie theater, the night had fully settled in. The lights, the soft noise of people around, the comfort of sitting side by side. It all felt natural now. Kang whispered commentary during the movie, reacting dramatically to scenes, predicting plots completely wrong, and occasionally whispering things like, "If I was in this movie, it would end in 5 minutes." Amanda nudged him lightly. "Be quiet." "I'm quiet," he whispered loudly. "You're not." "Okay, I'm quieter now." He lasted about 3 minutes before whispering again. But Amanda didn't mind as much as she thought she would. Somewhere between the restaurant, the beach, the ice cream, and the movie, something had shifted. What started as chaos had turned into comfort. What started as annoyance had turned into laughter. And what started as a random encounter was beginning to feel like something worth continuing. Dinner came last, almost like the quiet closing scene of a very loud, very unpredictable day, but with Kang. Even quiet refused to stay quiet for long. The restaurant he chose had soft lighting, warm tones, and just enough calmness to make everything feel a little more intimate. It was the kind of place where voices naturally dropped lower, where conversations slowed down, at least for normal people. Kang tried. For exactly 5 minutes. He sat properly at first, back straight, hands folded like he had suddenly remembered how to behave in public. Amanda noticed immediately and narrowed her eyes. "Why are you acting like this?" she asked. "Like what?" Kang replied innocently. "Like you have manners." He nodded slowly. "I do have manners." She gave him a look. He lasted 2 more seconds before leaning forward suddenly, resting his elbows on the table. "So, on a scale of 1 to 10, he began seriously, how lucky are you right now?" Amanda didn't even try to hold it in this time. She laughed instantly. "Very funny." "I'm serious," Kang insisted, placing his hand dramatically on his chest. "This is premium company. Limited edition." "You talk too much," she replied, still smiling. "That's part of the package," he said proudly. Their food arrived, and immediately Kang transformed into something else entirely. He picked up his fork, examined the plate like a judge on a cooking show, then nodded slowly. "This rice," he said thoughtfully, "has emotional depth." Amanda paused mid-bite, staring at him. "What does that even mean?" He took a bite, chewed carefully, then closed his eyes slightly. "It's telling a story," he continued. "I don't know the story yet, but I feel it." Amanda shook her head, laughing softly as she continued eating. There was something about the way he spoke, ridiculous, exaggerated, completely unserious, but it made everything feel lighter. Even silence around him didn't stay silent for long. Then his phone buzzed. Again, Kang glanced at it this time, his expression shifting for just a second, not serious but aware. Then he sighed loudly like the phone had personally offended him and flipped it over without answering. Amanda noticed. Important? Kang didn't hesitate. Not as important as this moment. He pushed the phone slightly away like it didn't belong on the table anymore. Some people, he added, don't understand timing. Amanda studied him briefly like she wanted to ask more but didn't. Instead, she leaned back slightly, letting the moment settle. Their conversation softened after that. The jokes were still there, but they weren't rushing anymore. They talked about small things, childhood habits, random fears, embarrassing moments. Kang admitted very proudly that he once waved back at someone who wasn't waving at him and still thinks about it. That stays with you, he said seriously. That kind of pain, it builds character. Amanda laughed again, shaking her head. You're ridiculous. I've been told that, he replied calmly. Then, in a brief pause, one of those rare, quiet moments where nothing needed to be said, Amanda leaned forward and gave him a quick peck. It lasted barely a second. But for Kang, time stopped. He froze completely, fork midair, eyes wide, brain buffering. Slowly, very slowly, he placed the fork down, then stood up. Wait, he said, raising a hand slightly. Wait, hold on. Amanda's eyes widened instantly. Kang. Too late. He turned slightly, looking around the restaurant like he was searching for something. Excuse me, he said, not even that loudly, but enough for nearby tables to notice. Did anyone else just see that? A couple at the next table glanced over. Amanda covered her face immediately. Oh my word, sit down. No, this is history. Kang continued, pointing at his cheek. I need witnesses. This is a public event. She reached out and pulled his sleeve. Sit down. He finally sat, still in disbelief, touching his cheek lightly like it had been marked forever. I'm not washing this face again, he muttered. Amanda couldn't stop laughing now, her shoulders shaking as she tried to calm down. You are so embarrassing. Greatness is often misunderstood, he replied calmly. She looked at him again, still smiling, still shaking her head. And somewhere between the laughter, the ridiculousness, and the unexpected softness of that moment, everything felt real. Not forced, not planned, just real. When Kang finally pulled up in front of Amanda's house, the night had already settled into that soft, quiet calm that comes after a long, eventful day. The engine idled for a moment, neither of them rushing to end it just yet. Amanda reached for the door handle, then paused. Today was something, she said, half smiling. Something good, Kang corrected immediately. She shook her head. You're too much. I prefer just enough, he replied smoothly. She opened the door, stepped out, then leaned slightly back toward the window. Good night, Kang. He leaned across dramatically, resting his arm on the window frame. Good night? That's it. After everything we've been through today. Amanda laughed. What else do you want? Kang didn't even think. He puckered his lips exaggeratedly and blew a long, dramatic kiss into the air. Safe journey into your house, he said. Text me when you miss me. She turned, already laughing as she walked toward her door. You're not serious. I've never been more serious in my life, he called after her. She waved without turning back, still smiling as she disappeared inside. Kang watched the door for a second longer than necessary, then leaned back into his seat with a satisfied sigh. Successful day, he muttered. Then his phone rang. Again. He picked it up this time. The screen lit up. Mum. Kang's face dropped instantly. Ah. He stared at it for a few seconds, then shook his head and declined the call. Why today of all days? He groaned, starting the car and driving off. By the time he got home, he had already rehearsed a few weak excuses in his head, but the moment he opened the door, he knew none of them would work. Where have you been? Kang froze mid-step. Slowly, he tried to sneak the rest of his body inside like maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't notice. Mum, Let's not start with shouting, he said carefully, closing the door behind him. Let's start with love. My car, my money, my clothes. He stopped completely. Right? The mission, the forgotten mission. He turned slowly, scratching the back of his head. So, funny story, what money did I give you? She demanded. Kang hesitated. The money he was given? She asked. He had spent all on Amanda. He cleared his throat. So, technically it was not spending. Her eyes narrowed. It was investing. In what? In love, Kang said proudly, placing his hand on his chest. There was a pause. A dangerous pause. Then she reached for her slipper. Kang's eyes widened. He ran. I told you I met my future wife, he shouted as he dashed across the living room. This is long-term investment. Investment? She yelled, chasing after him. I will invest this slipper on your head. Chaos erupted instantly. Kang jumped over the couch, nearly slipping but recovering midair. You're getting slow, he taunted, laughing loudly. I will show you slow, she fired back, swinging wildly. He dodged again, ducking behind a chair. Mom, please. Let's communicate. This is communication. She lunged again. He escaped again. The entire house turned into a battlefield of laughter, footsteps, and near misses. Then suddenly, his phone rang. Both of them froze. Their eyes slowly turned toward the table. The phone buzzed again. His mom moved first. She grabbed it. Kang saw the screen, and his soul left his body. Amanda, she read aloud. Kang gasped like he had just been betrayed by destiny. Mom, no, don't please. Too late. She smiled slowly, then ran. Straight into her room. Door slammed. Locked. Mom! Kang sprinted after her, nearly slipping again as he reached the door and started knocking frantically. Mom, please. You will ruin my career. Open this door. Inside, she had already answered. Hello, my dear. Amanda's voice came through faintly, confused at first, then amused. Outside, Kang pressed his ear against the door, trying desperately to hear anything. Please, I beg you, he whispered dramatically. At least lie small. Inside, his mum was comfortable, relaxed, chatting like she had known Amanda forever. Oh, this boy, she said with a laugh. This is not his first time, oh. Kang's eyes widened. Mom, he will use car, use money, do shakera, she continued. Amanda laughed softly on the other end, clearly entertained. What? Kang whispered to himself, pacing. Why is she exposing full biography? He knocked again. Mom, please. Reduce volume of truth. Inside, the conversation only got warmer. They laughed together, joked together, even teased Kang like he wasn't outside fighting for his reputation. At some point, Kang just leaned his head against the door, defeated. This is how legends fall, he muttered. Minutes passed, then more minutes, then what felt like forever. Finally, after 25 long, painful, dramatic minutes, the door opened. His mom stepped out calmly, like nothing had happened. Kang stood there, staring at her like a man who had just survived betrayal. She handed him his phone. He took it slowly. Silence. Then she leaned closer, her voice dropping slightly. This one, she whispered, smiling. I like her. Kang blinked. Really? She nodded. Make sure you bring her home. There was a pause. Then Kang broke into a grin. For once we agree. They both burst out laughing. And for the first time that day, behind all the jokes and chaos, something about it felt real enough to keep. If you made it to the end, don't leave without hitting the subscribe button. It motivates us and helps us create more amazing stories just for you. Thanks for watching, and God bless.